Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Women on Top podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Lynn, and with over 15 years of business experience, I became truly passionate about finding ways to support and hear from way more women. And what we know to be true is that women thrive when they are in their favorite position, on top in business, in relationships, in personal growth, and on top in being real and authentic to who the hell they are. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy the Women on Top podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Women on Top, but today's episode is extra special because this is the very first time that we're doing kind of this like mini panel style episode. So today we don't just have one guest, we have two, and I just can't freaking wait to introduce them to you. So first we have Bri Dimit, who is releasing her new album in less than a month, and Bri is a musician. And as an introspective artist, she really has this belief that music and art are tools for healing and discovering people's joy. And she's also the co-founder of the Modern Women Show. And she has, again, the album coming out. So we're going to get into all of that in just a bit. But alongside of her, we also have her amazing friend, Jacqueline Martinez. And she is the other half of the Modern Woman Show. And she's also a people and business leader with a background in tech, which I think is really interesting. And she infuses that with human design and astrology, which I also just love. So she really helps women to forge their own path and, again, amplify their voice and their success. I love this. And let's just kind of get into it. I want to talk about kind of this delicate dance a little bit of what can be the balance of being close friends and also doing business together. So I just kind of want to start there because I invited you both here. So I invited you both for a reason. And I just love the dynamic that you have. And it feels like you work really well together, but you're also obviously friends. So I want to know like what's that journey been like and how have you navigated those waters? And I'll just go back over to Bri.
Oh, I love this question so much because it is one and the same for us. And I've never experienced a partnership or a friendship or a relationship that has been so profound in my life. And I think it's because of that. I think we both are extraordinary visionaries. And we also are very dedicated to our own personal growth.
Yeah.
And so when I met Jacqueline, I was I thought I knew all the things, but little did I know that like actually our friendship was the foundation of everything that you're seeing today. Like our brand, our business, who we are as individuals, we really amplify each other. Those ingredients created like just a foundation of trust. And that's only deepened as we have evolved. And so I think whether it's friendship or not, I mean, we do have boundaries but really it comes down to just communication. Like, I think we're both just dedicated to creating a legacy in this life, but that's also an extension of us, just like family is an extension of us. And so I think those two are just kind of one and the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think it's a little unique actually to find somebody that you gel so easily with and that you can do business with together too. Because I feel like even for myself, sometimes you meet people and you're like, oh my gosh, let's do something together. But you don't realize like what it actually takes to create the right synergy for it to work and to really, like you said, have some boundaries. So I'm always curious how that works. And especially for women, like we can get kind of competitive sometimes. Not all women, I'm not saying that that's the case, but it can kind of be this interesting dynamic just depending on the situation. And I think you both have really high self-awareness that allows for this to be a really successful relationship. Anything that you would add to that, Jacqueline?
Bri and I would connect regularly over brunch. And that's actually where the idea for starting a podcast together and where we initiated it, because we were having these conversations that were beyond what I normally have with other people. They were very transformational in nature, talking about our growth. And that's when I knew, I was like, oh, she is special. There is something here. How fun would it be to start creating things together? Partnership, no matter who it is, it can be the easiest person in the world. It's never easy.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the path for us has been to continue to use it as transformation and
Mhm.
to deepen our friendship. So for us, it was one and the same. It has been one and the same, and it continues to be. And it didn't start out with, I mean, we initially were like, yeah, you're amazing. I love you. I think we have great things in common. Let's do this. So it was definitely fun and electric. But over time, we've only developed more trust with each other because hiccups come up along the way. And we
Mhm.
work through them in such a beautiful and open way. I don't know. I think we have not only the best of intentions for each other,
Yeah.
and we've also become 50 million people since then, each of us.
Mhm.
And like coming together every time we find something new to create, it's just like, I don't know, it's the fastest transformation I've ever experienced
Yeah.
alongside someone also transforming at the same rate.
That's the best feeling. Really quickly, would love to just hear, are there certain things that you feel like you've learned about yourself because of the dynamic, because of the transformation that you both have pushed each other towards? And what are some of those things?
I think that's really amazing. I've definitely had like a mentor wound. I was like a child who had to raise herself. I lost my mom at 13
Ah,
and like had a physically available dad, but not always an emotionally available dad. And so when I met Jacqueline, one thing that was just different about how I responded to any sort of triggers that came up when it came to a reflection
mhm.
was, what is this saying about me? I
Mm.
don't know if it was where I was at in my life. I don't know if it was her presence and aura that allowed me to just feel softened rather than like defensive. Um, but that's just been like such a beautiful framework that I feel like we both really have when it comes to like seeing each other as a mirror. Like not only the good, but like anytime that we're like, what? Like, how do you not see your gifts? It's like, wait, do I see mine? Like, and
Yeah.
so I think it's really cool that we're also like so okay. And Jacqueline mentioned like the ego dropping. I think too, the openness that we have of being able to like receive from each other, but also use that as a way to go inward to develop that personal growth within ourselves rather than seeing it as like something to be afraid of. It's like we just have this faith and trust as our foundation, and we needed that openness to be able to shift through all these different versions of ourselves in such a short period of time. And so, yeah, I mean, I've learned I was first introduced to human design through Jacqueline. And so that has been such a profound tool in my life. It's been the first opportunity where I've like had a guide that feels so validating and aligned for me.
Mhm.
And Jacqueline's the most extraordinary interpreter. Yeah, for all of those reasons, like I
Mhm.
feel so grateful to have her as a mirror.
I kind of feel like the human design aspect almost helps remove the judgment part. I kind of feel like it gives reason to emotion. And so I would love to have you kind of share a little bit more about that, Jacqueline, because I know just enough to be dangerous about human design, but like very minimal. And I would love to have you just kind of explain on like the 30,000 foot view level to people out there listening, what is this thing of human design? I also just have to say, like, before you go into that, I love the fact that you are a combination of like corporate background, I think tech background, right? And then you also have the astrology and the human design stuff that you just love and that you're so gifted at naturally. And I think that that's such a beautiful combination. I feel like the world needs so much more of
I
that.
love that. Valerie, do you know your human design?
Yeah. Well, I know I'm a generator and then
Okay.
I'm like a 1-3. That's what I know.
Fantastic. I love that. Well, okay, no, I totally get it. Human design is something that I think discovered by accident, just like anything. And whenever I would try to get away from it, it kept finding me again. And if you're a 1-3, then you know the power and probably hobby of yours about curiosity and diving deep into things and really, being a researcher. And so I don't have that profile, but I couldn't not study human design. Human design, high level, is basically a system based on part science, part spiritual concepts. Astrology is included in there, founded a long time ago. Basically here to give us maps of our energy and how we're here to interact with the world. And everybody has their own kind of map, their own human design. And when I first looked at my human design, I couldn't understand it because of the way it looks, like part preschool drawing, part science project. And I had to know. I just had to know. So I took several classes, actually 3 semesters, if like that's how long I spent just studying so that I could know enough to be dangerous. And it was actually it was like a corporate solution. Like I could bring that to corporations. But what I wanted to do was understand myself and my people a little bit better. So I started with that. And now I kind of use it in like all the work I do. But basically what drew me in at first was how it explained the dynamics of energy between my husband and I. So I was understanding myself better and I was understanding him better. And he is not, really into that stuff naturally. But when I would start kind of asking him if some of the stuff resonated with him, he was like, yes, this is kind of wild. And so it really did transform my family and how we operated and how we interact with one another. And so, yeah, I just brought that up to Bri because it's one of my natural hobbies and one thing I love to do. And it resonated with her as well. And so we we definitely use it as a foundation for our relationship and a lot of our conversations that we have.
If somebody is interested, and we can drop links, of course, and I'll have that all in the show notes. But if someone's interested in learning more about this, what would you suggest that they do? Can they work with
Yeah,
you, or how can they get more information?
absolutely. Since learning about human design, there's so many just ways to connect with it that didn't exist when I was there. Like when I first started, had to read books and go through courses. And now there are apps that will literally read your chart for you. So there are a couple of apps that I recommend. I would say my favorite is called My Human Design by Jenna Zoe. Even the free version, you can get a pretty good reading. It's just combining all the different aspects of your chart to make a whole. So there's so many in it. I also suggest doing it in small amounts because it's a lot of information at first and it's easy to intellectualize. I know I naturally do that with information about myself. I'm like, oh, this is how I should operate. I'm going to be more this. But it's really about embodying that. And it's an experiment that takes time. So really doing it and listening to yourself and how you respond to it over time is the best way, in my opinion. Another way is if you want to connect, I'd love to share more. And usually what I like to do is not just, share information about charts, but if somebody's on a certain path or they want to get to a certain place, whether it's in their career or in, their business, if they're an entrepreneur, or if they're trying to move into a different place and they're not really quite sure how to practically apply elements from their human design, that's what I like to do, is really connect people to who they are and help them build something or create something their way.
I love that. So that made me think of a question when it comes to Bri. So how has this helped with with Bri and like your identity as you've now stepped into this album and that woman and who she is? How has, working with Jacqueline and the human design part, how has that helped? And maybe, yeah, Jacqueline, if you can maybe share from your experience.
I remember the first time Bri got a hold of her human design chart, and I gave you like a transcript or something from our reading, or like a huge multi-page thing that I wrote myself. And she's like, I remember connecting with her shortly after. She's like, I've reread it several times. And just your response, you were so lit up and excited. And it was fun to me because I hadn't met a lot of people who were really into transformation and growth like that. But I think one thing, if you embody anything from your chart or human design, it's really your energy and your strategy and authority. And that's how you make decisions. So if you're ever in a conundrum or you're not really sure which direction to go, if you think about how you make decisions and just do it that way, you're pretty much going to get back to center every single time. And what Bri has shared with me over the years is that knowing her human design and being able to step into that time and time again has brought her back to herself in a way that she hasn't. And I don't want to take words from you, Bri, but this is what you told me, in a way that she hasn't before. Just really by remembering what her decision-making strategy is. But Bri, I want you to be able to share for yourself as well.
No, 100%. I think I think going back to your original question, Valerie, like human design was a permission slip for me to be myself.
Yeah.
And that's 100% what this whole album is like, I mean, that's why it's called Limitless. It means liberation. It means the freedom to create life any way that you choose. It means to break out of the boxes that you were put in or you put yourself in. And it means that you get to write the script. And so I want this entire album to be a permission slip for any person who is listening to these songs to live their life any way that they desire. And so with human design, for me, my strategy is, well, my authority is emotional. So I'm an emotional authority and my strategy is waiting to respond. And so I go through emotional waves. I feel all the good, I feel all the bad. And if it's a hell yes, it's a yes. If it's not, and I'm second guessing, or I'm in my head, or I'm overthinking, or I have a hesitation or a block, it's a no. And so, like Jacqueline said, that alone just gave me permission to feel my emotions. Like, I've always been a kid with massive emotions and these massive expressions. And I just like anything that I've intrinsically felt that I was told was wrong, my human design was like, that's right for you, girl. And so I'm like, oh, it was like the fastest path to me going back to my childhood self. And that's something that I see often. And I highly recommend you do if you're like in it, in your day-to-day life, you don't see a way out. Ask yourself who you were when you were 7, what you loved when you were 9, what were you doing? What lit you up? What made you creative when you were by yourself? Like nobody else was judging, criticizing, whatever. That's what human design has been for me, is this path back to myself. And so in more ways than one. And so for me, it's been the biggest connection with human design, Jacqueline, and this whole mission and brand is that permission slip, and like for us to be able to be ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. I love how it connects so much with this, like you said, Limitless. So for everyone listening, that is the title of the album that's coming out in like several weeks. Oh my gosh, it's so soon. I can't believe it. So I was going to ask you, yeah, where that title really came from, because I know it means a lot to you. And I would just kind of, yeah, love to hear, in addition to obviously like there being that permission slip, did you always know this was the title, or did you write the songs and then the title emerged and like showed up to you?
I did not go in with this intention. 3 years ago is when I started writing these songs, and all the songs on the album are actually in chronological order. So I wrote them based on like an event or experience or theme in that moment. So it starts with this beautiful version of me, which was me leaving like Indiana and embarking to travel the world. And so that's more about like discovering adventure, etc. And then it goes on and ends with like a beautiful letter written to my mom, because she was her passing was what created the first song in me to like step into my professional career as an artist. And so really you get like the whole story of it all. Limitless was written with actually the intention of Jacqueline, like our dynamic, really. And it was like, I mean, it talks about fixing each other's crowns and like being in collaboration. And it actually was written with the intention of like, let's put down our phones, like let's think before we speak, like basically all that we were co-creating and doing together. And it was really about collaboration, creating limitless opportunities versus competing. Because I had come from, as I was stepping into this version of myself and transforming as an artist and really taking myself very seriously in my career, I lost like 6 of my dearest friends. And so Jacqueline and I, like the dynamic and the frequency that we had was just like so profoundly different in such a collaboratory way. Like she was consistently pushing me and amplifying me to step into this version of myself, when so many other people who were in my life were like, who do you think you are? Like, who have you become? And so this song really was about like women particularly championing each other. And so when I continued and finished out the album, I was actually talking with Jacqueline. I was like, man, I just like, what would make the most sense? Like what embodies all of these stories? And she was like, Limitless. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, Bri, every time you're in the studio, because she got to be in the studio when I was recording some of these songs, and Limitless in particular. And she was like, you feel limitless. You feel like when you're co-creating, when you're writing, when you're singing, when you're performing, you feel liberated. So like that is it. Like that is what all of these songs are doing for you. And that's what these songs really were. I did not go in to share them with the world. That wasn't even my intention. They were as a healing modality for me.
Wow.
And so it just has really like perfectly transformed, and it just felt so aligned. And I went home and I was like, yeah, it's Limitless. And then we just used it from then on out, and it's just, yeah, it's created even more than just an album title, but a movement.
Oh my gosh. Jacqueline, did you know how much you helped like create this album? I mean, that you were a part of the meaning behind it. Did you know that? I like watching her face and I'm like, did you know this was the story?
No, I didn't
Really?
know. She did tell me later, way after the fact. I don't know if we were in the studio and you were recording it, but you were telling me why you wrote Limitless, and I lost it. I was like, are you kidding me? Why did you tell me? Leave with that. But it was a really sweet moment. What I think it was really beautiful. I remember asking Bri about writing music that is really for her, and she was writing in the van, which was refreshing, but obviously I didn't know any of it. And then afterwards, like way after the fact, she told me she had studio time. And I was like, wait, tell me more. You're recording an album? She's like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. And then she finds herself in the studio. I find myself there one day, and it kind of just came together, and it was really impressive how it happened. So her writing and then recording and now performing and now releasing this week, Limitless, has just been it. I will never get tired of hearing the story. I think it's beautiful, and it's totally more than just the two of us, but it is really amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that she even put that together. So yeah, it gets me every time, which is why you notice my response to that. I'm just like, oh, I just love it. And it's an amazing song. Like I cannot wait for you all to hear it.
Yeah. I feel like I've heard little clips like on social media. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was getting excited.
I have it stuck in my head all the time now. I'm excited to finally be able to play it on Spotify. I mean, I have it so I can play it on my drive, but I just want to hit like on repeat. It's going to be on repeat.
Yeah, I think it's going to be on so many people's repeat for sure.
Exactly.
I love the art of how you've done it, because I think it's more than just, I'm just going to go write some songs because it's fun for me to do and we'll just throw an album together. This was like, I feel like you healing yourself, like from the inside out. Everything like came out on this album, and I feel like we get to walk the path and the journey with you because of how you did it and put it in that order. And I just think that there's like, I'm even more invested in this now, like knowing that. So I hope when people hear this, they're like, damn, I want to go listen to that, because I get like this, I don't know, like an intimate look inside of your soul. And that's what you wanted, I think, from all of this. And I think it's really great that like you had, Jacqueline to kind of say like, write this for you. And that's what it gets to be. And of course it's going to end up impacting so many people, but I love that. Did you produce this everything, or what's been the process? Like, I'm so curious. Did you write everything? Did you produce everything? Did you have someone helping you, or like, what is the Bri show?
Yeah, so when I was first starting out, I did like everything. But when I was writing, this was more, like you said, about me healing. I was less invested in like being a one-woman show. I think I was really trying to let go of that. That was also part of my transformative journey, is like believing that I'm not alone and I don't have to do it alone. So throughout this album, it was really an opportunity for me to have aligned partnerships. And so I did work with some other producers. There's a lot of different co-collaborators from the music side of it. And that really expedited my excitement, because I also realized that what was really exciting for me was the songwriting, the singing, the performing, like, and the co-creating, like basically talking with them, being like, hey, I really hear this, like really finding the right beat that articulated the emotion that I was trying to convey. And some of the songs were written first, and then I would spend hours and hours and hours listening to samples, asking people to add this, add drums here, add violin there.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful to hear, because there's a lot of women out there that are trying to create things and trying to have it be like a one woman show. And sometimes we need to find that other person, whether it's like your friend, your Jacqueline, right? Or your producer, or whoever it is that can really like amplify it and take it to a whole different level. So I think it's always good to hear about how many people were involved in the overnight success story, because it's never like the overnight success. It's always been a journey, first of all, and like second of all, I think it's like such a group effort, for a lack of a better term. So I love that. Other question I want to ask you is, I'm thinking about your like the production of this, and I know we could talk about it for hours, but what was the hardest song to write? And I don't mean hardest song technically, I mean hardest song like for you to write from an emotional healing place.
So I was trying to identify like what was hard for me, because it's like, it's that right there. I think it was so easy, because for me, every song starts with an emotional charge. Like that's my cue. And Jacqueline knows that too. Like she's literally like, there's a song in there. Like she's literally like, oh, I feel like something's coming. And it's because it always starts with an emotional charge. Like, and it's not like, that doesn't mean it's like a dramatic emotion, but it'll be just like something's marinating in my brain. And the way for it to get out and to move through it for me is writing a song. And so my mom song was probably the most easy song for me to write, because there was so much emotion around it. But performing it was so funny. I actually told Jacqueline when it was done, because were you in the studio for the mom song? Okay. Well, I stay at her house every time I go record. So I showed it to her afterwards, and I was like, yeah, this is the final song. It's kind of like a bonus track on the album. I'm never going to perform it. And she was like, oh, okay. Like ever? And I was like, yeah, it's going to be a personal thing for me, because the very first song I ever put out as an artist on Spotify, Apple Music, and everywhere was Collapsed, which is about me witnessing my mom's death and like being in the hospital room and the walls collapsing in on me, and like how I'm going to get through this. And I was 13 when I wrote it, and I put it out when I was 24. And so I realized when I was creating these songs that like, I haven't written an updated letter to her. I haven't like it's been 17 years since she's passed, and like I'm living in so much joy. And that song was so sad. And so throughout this like transformation for me, and as I was stepping into like the happiest version of myself, I wanted to write an updated letter to her. And so I think writing it was the most easy thing. But then when I was doing my production and the mini music videos and doing my photo shoot for my album cover, I actually asked Brittany when we were about to wrap up, I was like, hey, do you mind? I just want to kind of end with like singing this song on a stage. And I did. And I like cried through it, like all the way through it. And I actually am planning on performing it at my album release party on August 1st. And although it's like the hardest song to perform, I think it's the most felt. And that's a big part of this album too, is I really wanted people to feel me, not just hear me. That song is like has just the most emotion in it. And is honestly the story of it too, is just like, she's been such a profound component of me as an artist. And the song is really about telling her all the joy that I'm experiencing and almost letting go of that codependency of like that I need her voice to thrive. It's also like, hey mom, look at everything that I've created for myself now.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like I've gotten goosebumps from many different parts of this conversation, but definitely for that piece. And it's so beautiful to me how art, music, story speaks to so many different people, because my mom's still here on the physical plane, but like I can just feel what you're talking about in a different way. Because I think we all have different stories inside of us about how we've hung on to people or narratives or certain things, and then we finally do something for ourselves, and the radical difference that that is. So I love hearing all of the juicy bits and like where things come from, and just hearing the emotion, honestly, because I can like hear it in your voice too and you talk about it. And I love that, because it means you just love the album so much from a personal level. Jacqueline, I'm curious, from your perspective, because you have been, I mean, like for all intents and purposes, I feel like you're like her producer, like executive producer. I don't know. I feel like you're just kind of like, you're right there. So in it. And I'm wondering if like watching her, going through this with her and empowering her in so many different ways, has that done something for you in your own life in terms of your gifts and where you're going? And like, has being part of the journey done something? What are those lessons maybe that you've witnessed?
Bri and I were actually just speaking about that this morning. Bri has so many gifts, and one of the gifts that I think is showcased in this album, and one of the things that I've learned from her most in our friendship, is her depth of her just emotional depth and her depth of connection. So she, in this album, has just thrown that depth into this container, into the sacred space. And the music doesn't it's not just like fun and boppy, although it is, it also changes you. And I've tried to share, I think she gets it, but like when I first heard her sing, I was like, you don't understand. Like your voice is a portal. Like your voice does something very different. Like it definitely is a heart opener. So I feel like I've let my heart open. I've been more in connection with my emotions. I've been more connected to other people in my life because of who she is and what she's created. And I just cannot wait for the world to hear it. So obviously, like I'm 100% behind her because she's my girl, but I also 100% believe in the Limitless mission and the movement of being unlimited and being free and being able to do and say anything that you want. Because I too have been in a cubicle, right? Like I've been in a box, I've been in a container, and I've built a life based on what other people think I should do and who I should be. And it is not fulfilling. In fact, I've done it a couple times and then broken myself out. I'm like, why do I keep doing this? And so
Yeah.
it's been really freeing for me to be in this space, basically be in Bri's presence, who always reminds me of who I am and reflects that back to me. And Bri is a diamond, and she is creating other diamonds with her music. For me personally, I've definitely recognized my gifts in helping her. I'm like, oh, this is easy for me. This is simple for me. And she's like, well, it's not really for me. And so, just like we talked about earlier with supporting people, creators, business owners with, connecting more to themselves and their gifts and doing their thing their way using their human design astrology, I started building an agency where I get to do that with Bri. I've done that, on a different level with other people. And I'm like, this is actually fun and something that I'm naturally very lit up by and good at. And so it's something that just like naturally has progressed since we've started doing this work together. So I've learned so much about myself, but also I think more than anything, when I'm in her presence, I feel like a limitless queen. And when I leave her presence, I tell her all the time, I'm like, I definitely feel more powerful. I'm a different person from the experience we have together. Every time we're in the same space at the same time, it becomes a vortex. And I really believe that listening to her music provides the same space for people.
My goodness. I like I don't even care if this turns into a podcast, because this has just been so amazing. I mean, it's going to be an amazing podcast, let's be real. But this is so awesome to just, I mean, it's such a, I don't even know if that I can capture the depth and like the meaning behind sitting with women who have just been such gifts in each other's lives and in such different ways. But that was like kind of where I was heading with that question, is because when you sit, I think, in this space with someone who's going for it, even if they're shaking and scared and terrified out of their mind, but they're just willing to do it because of their mission, their soul's purpose, something happens in yourself where you go for it differently. And it's just like this amplifier effect. And I love that you now are also like taking your gifts to a whole different level. And that was kind of my assumption, but I wasn't sure. There's always different ways that can show up. But I love that, because I feel like you've realized like, oh, I am a badass at this. And this is a natural thing that I have that not everyone has. And sometimes we're not illuminated to that. I think that that's amazing that you're taking yourself to a whole different level too. And I love that, one of you is like a permission slip to the other, and then it's right. Like it just all goes together. And I feel like it's this beautiful cycle that happens. So I want to know, you've kind of both said it, but for you, Jacqueline, like what does this limitless, and you touched on it a little bit, what does limitless mean for you? Like, where do you see yourself now heading even more? You kind of gave us a taste of, the agency and all of that, but is there anything else that you kind of feel for yourself, like that you're expanding into?
That's a great question. I think it's been back to human design. Manifesting generators, both Bri and I have this big energy, and we want, like, naturally, it's inherent for us to both want the world to also feel that limitless freedom, that liberation from kind of being put in a box or doing things a certain way, or basically having expectations put on us to exist in a mold. And that was the life that I've lived like forever. And it's always been really difficult for me to step outside of the box, because it was lonely.
Yeah.
And I did it anyway. And so now, again, it's a giant permission slip to do that and own it. And so the work that I do, it's a little modern, it's a little weird, it's a little out there, and embracing that has allowed me to find other people who truly get it, truly embrace it, are also on the ride. And so for me, especially this year, has not only been about like career success and achievement. I mean, it is, and I will always be like, I love business. I just do.
Yeah.
And so expanding that will always be a journey. Like it's never going to be this one linear thing where I do this one thing forever. It's going to keep going wild. Bri knows it's already changed so many times since I met her. But for me, it's about embodying that feeling and really showing up as somebody who believes that about myself.
Yeah.
And feels truly connected to the people in my life and feels like I love the work that I'm doing. And I want that for everybody. Like I really, really do. And I want people to enjoy their work, whether it's going into a corporation or they're an entrepreneur. And I want people to like love the family that they're in and the friends that they have. Like I really care about that. And I always have ever since I started my career a long time ago. Like that was really why I showed up every day. Being, and I'm a people leader, I'm in HR, and I want people to love what they do and who they do it with. And so I'm not going to stop. And Limitless is not only for me, but it's about the people in our lives and the community that we're bringing together just by shining our light.
That's so beautiful. I love how you put that and just like kind of combining everything together.
I mean, I think Jacqueline said it perfectly. Like this has been, there's two big themes for what Limitless really means and what this album is intended to provoke. And it's liberation and collaboration. And it's the freedom and the permission to be yourself. And like Jacqueline said, it's terrifying to do that though. And one thing that I've learned is we're not supposed to do it alone. Like I thought I was different. Like when we feel that as creators, as entrepreneurs, as artists, like we're innovators. So what we're wanting to put out in the world is different. And different was always so bad because I was constantly compared to everyone else. Aren't we like that? That's just kind of how society is. And so I like writing this album, writing the song Limitless is all about those two components. dropping the guard, letting different be beautiful, letting myself be free to create whatever I want to create, and knowing that I'm not supposed to do it alone, and that there's other different people that I want to collaborate with, because when we come together with our innovative ideas, that's what creates limitless possibilities.
Ooh. Just like mic drop on that. Yeah. From both of you. I mean, truly, like this has just been such a fiery, but like uplifting and I don't know, just really like juicy, but meaningful, like so meaningful. I feel like this conversation. And I resonate so much with both of you, which I love also. I mean, we knew that was going to happen, but I love that like storytelling piece where getting to hear both of your voices and just what your journeys have been really just feels like, again, such a like permission slip, I guess, for a lot of women out there, I feel like. So I've been doing something with the podcast and asking every guest I interview to leave like a piece of advice or just like wisdom or something that they want to share with whoever the next guest is, not knowing who it's going to be. Ironically, I interviewed somebody before you. She didn't know that there was going to be two of you, and she left me two quotes, which I think is so interesting, like how in alignment that is. So we kind of already mentioned this during the conversation, but like this quote anyway. And she said, I love this quote of it takes years of hard work to be an overnight success. And I think I brought that up already, but I love that one as well. And then the second quote is from Sarah Blakely, which is an education will earn you a living. A self-education will make you a fortune. And I'd never heard that one before. I feel like that one is kind of wrapped into a lot of the conversation that we've had today. So, so then I want to ask you the same. And, you know, since there's two of you, you can leave two pieces of advice or just things that might be dropping into your brain as we're having this conversation, but not knowing who I'm going to interview next. What is something that you'd like to leave for that woman? And I'll start with you, Bri.
What immediately comes to my mind is just like completely put on the spot, but I feel like it's like, I feel called to just say it's safe to be you. Like it's safe to be you. And I know that that's not always true in environments that we're in, but I think it's really important to tell ourselves that like with us, it's safe to be me. And that means like, if I feel safe within myself, I'm safe no matter where I go.
Yeah. No, I think that that's perfect. And I'm honestly working on that all the time, is reminding myself that I get to be me. Like the magic comes from being me and trying to remember it is safe because that's how the universe wanted it. Jacqueline, anything coming to your mind?
I think this is such a cool thing to do. So kudos to you, Valerie. I think for me, what's coming up is if something is off, it probably is out of alignment. And if something is presented to you that feels like an amazing opportunity or the next step, but it's so scary, do it anyway.
I love that. I love that because how many times do we as women like wait until it's like so toxic before we just finally leave when the whole entire time we're like, this is not right, girl. Like just leave, be done with it. And same thing on the other side. Like it might feel scary or big or crazy, but we just feel it in our heart and in our gut that, oh, I need to go for this, even if it doesn't make sense to everybody else. So I love that. This has been amazing. Like, can I just say, I mean, like, I want to like clap it up for both of you. This has been so awesome. I can't articulate like my level of just gratitude and just I feel so amazing right now after talking to both of you. And I just know that it's going to hit the right people who need to hear these messages. And thank you for being those permission slips. Thank you for being bold leaders in the spaces that you're in and supporting each other. What a freaking gift that we get to see and hear from both of you how amazing these female friendships can be, because we hear about it, but actually like being able to witness that for both of you is just a complete gift. And so thank you for being here. I can't say that enough.
Thank you so much, Valerie, from the bottom of my heart. Like, this has been so fun. You are so extraordinary. This has been such a great conversation, and I feel super lit up leaving this conversation too.
Valerie, you're incredible at your craft, and it's been so nice meeting you here, and I can't wait to continue the relationship.
I am so grateful that you took the time to come and hang out here with me today. And honestly, I can't thank you enough. So instead, I will just say that I would appreciate your continued help in keeping this show on top by dropping a 5-star rating and leaving a review. It truly helps the algorithms and helps keep us on the edge. I'm sending you a virtual aggressive hug, which is the only way I like to give hugs. And thank you again for joining me in this wild, awesome ride. I look forward to hanging out with you next time. And until then, remember that you deserve a place on the top. And I'll see you there.